Okay, let's get into the stock market technical analysis. We'll start off with triple Qs and look at some of these mega cap tech stocks. They're pretty much what's driving any kind of rally in the market right now. So we'll go ahead and look at those and let's get into it. Triple Qs, guys. We are rising in a bearish rising wedge right now on the daily chart. There it is. You can see this kind of rising wedge. That's a bearish rising wedge. So ultimately, that's a bearish setup. But price continues to rise. We do have negative divergence showing up on RSI and the PPO. So ultimately, this is a bearish setup. But we don't have an actionable trade yet. We don't have a sell signal. We need to break the trendline support to initiate an actual trade. So you'll see here, there's your support on the daily. We need to see that break. Right now, it's about... it's a rising wedge, so the trend line support is rising, but anywhere around this 424-ish, and it really just depends on when or if this trend line breaks. But that would be the sell signal. We don't have that yet, so we're just kind of waiting for that. Until we get that sell signal, prices can continue to kind of grind higher in this wedge. We're coming close, though, to the apex of the wedge, which is ultimately usually where you'll see these things break. So I do suspect it's going to happen soon, but it's a waiting game at this point. From my perspective, I don't think it makes sense to put any money to work on the long side, any new money, at least. And if you are long, just trail your stops and be on the lookout for that sell signal. Okay, flipping over to the equal weighted triple Qs. This one basically has all top 100 as an equal weighting, and it's not outsizing the weighting of the 5 to 7 stocks that are doing most of the gains. So here's the equal weighted, and you can also see this bearish rising wedge, all right, on the daily chart. So there it is. We have negative divergence, indicating that we're likely going to see a trend reversal sometime soon, and we're just pending a sell signal, a break of trendline support. Again, we don't have that yet, so it's just a waiting game. Moving over to the S&P 500, the SPY. Now, this one's not equal weighted. I need to adjust my trend line a little bit. We've got what looks to be like that, a rising wedge as well, something like that, all right? And so as far as I can tell, another bearish rising wedge, negative divergence, and it's really the same picture. Now, this is obviously going to look very similar to the triple Qs because those mega cap tech stocks are the most heavily weighted stocks in this sector as well, the S&P 500. And then if you look at the equal weighted S&P 500, a little bit of a different picture here because now you've got 500 stocks and they're all equally weighted. So you can see we're kind of just have been just hovering sideways on that one. I can't really make a rising wedge there. I could probably make an uptrend here and we're just kind of floating sideways. Could be a bull flag, all right? I'm not saying it's not because we don't have those sell signals. But again, it just looks like we're just kind of topping out with negative divergence on the momentum indicators. So that's the equal weighted. Okay, a lot of the, NVIDIA has been a big culprit for a lot of the rise, continuing to kind of grind higher. No reason to short this thing, all right? I don't see a sell signal. We have rolling out on the daily chart. I've got a longer term uptrend line right here on the daily, and that goes all the way back to October of 2022, and you can see we are just holding that trend line and pretty far above it right now. In order to even get back to the trend line, it's going to have to fall about 17% or so to get down to that trend line. So that is what I see on NVIDIA. Don't really see I don't really have really clean negative divergence that I'm, willing to basically put any money to work on this thing. The momentum is relatively strong in this. So the longer term sell signal comes on the break of this trend line. Let's look at, this one looks good to me, AVGO. Now it doesn't have a sell signal, but you can see here, this is, also a pretty heavy hitter in the semiconductor space. If I roll out, you can see we basically got negative divergence on the RSI and on the PPO here. And we have a trend line to watch, all right? You've got support, support, support. We're just kind of grinding along that trend line. A break of that trend line will be the next sell signal. And then from there, this thing should head down to the more major trend line support going back to October, and you can see support all through here. There's another reaction. There's a reaction. So, you know, a break of this short-term trend line right here on the daily chart should give us a drop down to the major trend line, and, you know, anywhere from about a 15%. It just kind of depends on when you actually hit that trend line, but let's say 10 to 15% drop in AVGO when we get the sell signal. Again, don't have a sell signal, no reason to short this thing quite yet. Just kind of waiting. Apple, I've got a longer term trend line right here on the daily. This is going back to December of 2022. Support. You can see we hit it again. You know, on earnings, they gapped it down, but they rallied it right back up. And so, you know, that's kind of the volatility that you'll see during earnings season. So that support still holding, all right? And so that would be kind of your next major sell signal, would be a break of this trend line right here. We do not have that yet. We do have kind of lower prices, but in general, just kind of lower prices, lower momentum. So ultimately on this one, I really need to see this trend line break in order to initiate a sell signal on Apple. And if Apple doesn't break, you're not going to see the market breaks. It's a really heavily weighted stock. It's really owned by a lot of ETFs. You need to see Apple break in order for the triple Qs to really trigger those sell signals as well. This is Meta. So obviously Meta gapped up huge on earnings, and it hasn't really gone anywhere since. It's kind of just consolidating that move. Potential for an island cluster reversal. What we need to see, though, we have a big gap up. We need to see a gap down. We have got a cluster on the daily chart right here. And if we get the gap down, it's going to create that island cluster top. All right, so be on the lookout for that. There's no guarantees we're going to get it, but if you see the gap down, then you trade it. It's pretty simple to trade. Basically, the way I like to trade these is you get the gap down, then you basically would stop out really over the highs. You know, you could give it just a little intraday pop over the highs, but really anything kind of, especially daily close over those highs right there, should be where you'd want to stop out at. Sometimes what you'll see, you'll gap down, they'll run it down, and then they'll rally it back up right into those highs and chop it around, run a bunch of stops, and then it rolls over. So that's it. You know, you take the short on the gap down with a stop above the highs, and that's the trade. It's basically a trend reversal pattern. So ultimately, it's signaling that this big uptrend here is done, and we're actually going to start the next longer term swing trade, which would be to the downside. Until you get the reversal pattern with the island cluster top, there is no sell signal on this one. Microsoft, you can see here kind of rallying up, making new highs, but the PPO is clearly in negative divergence, and the RSI is kind of equal, so it's close enough to call it divergence. No sell signal though. Well, we did actually on the short time frame. You can see we did get a sell signal here, and they're just over the last few days kind of rallying it back up. Again, we want to see sell signals across the board in triple Qs, in the equal weighted, in Apple, things like that. That will help really increase the odds that sell signals in some of the ones that maybe have breakdowns will actually stick. So that's really what I'd be looking for. Not really interested in shorting this until I start seeing signs across the board in these large cap tech stocks that we're getting broad sell signals. Amazon, again, Amazon looks familiar. Looks like Meta. You've got the potential for an island cluster top. There's no sell signal. We don't have an island yet. We need to see a gap down to create that island cluster top. So this might trade up here for a few days, and then be on the lookout for that gap down. If you get it, that's a reversal pattern, and you know, kind of went through that. So no sell signals on this one. Sitting at, if I roll out, looks like we're sitting at kind of resistance. You've got the all-time high up here, another reaction there, and a third reaction now where we're kind of just consolidating. So this might be the top, but again, I just prefer to wait for some sort of a reversal signal. All right, we need a sell signal because there's no guarantees that this is the top in Amazon. It could continue to rally. So reversal signal, some sort of a sell signal is what we got to wait for. Wheat, no real change here. Bullish divergence, it's been building for quite a while, almost a year now. and not quite a year, but pretty close. We just continue to consolidate sideways, building that bullish divergence. So it's not going up, it's not going down. It's just kind of dead money right now. But, the chart tells me it's going to break bullish and to the upside, but we need to see it. And right now, I think resistance is sitting at about that 605-ish. We need to see that break. The 200 days right there. So at this point, a break above that $6 and the 200-day would be kind of your next signal for, that this thing is starting to break up. But it could happen quickly because this is a pretty long consolidation pattern. So usually when you have such a long time frame where things have been consolidating, when you do finally break, you've got a lot of people that have to kind of reposition. So it could be a rather swift move initially. Netflix, kind of interesting. You can see on the daily chart here, we've got this kind of upward price channel. We then broke. We didn't even get a full back test, but close enough there. And then earnings, another back test. You can see they overshot it a little bit. You had a lot of momentum on earnings. That's, just kind of how it goes. But ultimately, over the preceding, the next few days after that, you're back basically trading kind of right at that resistance line. So this is an objective area to short right here at this resistance. I can see it easily rejecting here, coming down. First target would be filling this gap. You'll likely have some buyers stepping in right about there. And there's also this uptrend line right in there. So somewhere right in 505-ish, 504-ish, something like that. Well, actually down to about 502-ish. It's a pretty high price stock. So obviously, dollars are pretty minuscule. But basically, a drop of about 10%, 11.5%, something like that, down to the first level of support. So that's an objective short right there. We don't have a sell signal. There's no real rejection candle. So this could continue to grind, but it's at resistance. So that's basically it. And then you can see the divergence has really just been extended. I mean, even if I just get rid of, you can see we've been diverging really for a while, but even if I get rid of that and just see kind of the most recent move, here's the most recent high. You've got basically an equal PPO and you have an equal RSI. So you still have that divergence. Now, yes, if it continues going up, you're going to burn through that divergence. But again, you're at resistance, so you could always just stop out just, above resistance. If they start popping this thing above, you just stop out, take a small loss, very small loss, keep your stops tight, and look for another objective trade. At the end of the day, it's all about keeping our losses small and finding objective trades, managing our position sizing, and that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. If you guys are finding value, drop me a thumbs up. Feel free to join the private member group. I was kind of away from my computer for the last couple days, but I'm back. So I'll be putting out additional trade ideas, trade setups as I see them. Right now, I don't see a whole lot in the markets except for just these negative divergences and these bearish rising wedges in the tech stocks continuing to build. Those, to me, look like probably the best setups right now for upcoming trades. Not actionable right now, but in the future, kind of future trades coming up, they do look like they're setting up nicely. So going to continue to watch those. I'm going to wrap it up. Catch you on the next one.